Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight in and breaking down a truly legendary two-legged battle that, honestly, definitively shaped the history of European football. We're going to dissect AC Milan's 1989 UEFA Super Cup aggregate win against FC Barcelona. So if you love deep technical history and you want to understand how a single piece of silverware can literally ignite a multi-decade legacy, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's get right into the anatomy of this incredible victory.
You know, the UEFA Super Cup is famous for delivering what our sources call pure, unpredictable football. Instead of a gentle, cautious start to the European season, this is a competition where teams historically play to win, not just survive. It's football completely without the handbrake. It sets the tone for the entire campaign ahead, and historically, it brings together completely contrasting styles to produce these unforgettable, highly volatile moments on the pitch.
All right, part one, the ultimate football showdown.
Okay, so to truly appreciate the 1989 final, we really need to understand the unique format and the immense prestige of the competition during this specific era of European football. Historically, from 1973 right up until 1999, this competition was the ultimate heavyweight bout. It didn't just feature two good teams, it pitted the reigning kings of the European Cup directly against the holders of the European Cup Winners' Cup. And what's wild is, before 1998, this wasn't just a single glamour match played at some neutral friendly venue like Monaco. No way. It was a grueling home and away battle. It forced teams to prove their absolute dominance across two distinct legs, separated by weeks, in front of two very different and very hostile crowds. This format tested stamina, tactical adaptability, and pure psychological endurance.
Moving right along to part two, the 1989 heavyweight clash. Which brings us to the 1989 edition. This setup totally set the stage for one of the most compelling tactical battles of the entire decade. Listen, this wasn't just a match for a trophy. It was a pure collision of footballing ideologies. We're looking at a clash of two very distinct philosophies. On one side, you have Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan, the relentless Italian champions who had just conquered the 1988-89 European Cup. And opposing them, Johan Cruyff's FC Barcelona. Cruyff, obviously a legend in his own right, was actively developing this Catalan powerhouse that had just lifted the Cup Winners' Cup. Tactically, this is just fascinating. You have Sacchi's revolutionary, highly structured pressing and zonal marking system going head-to-head with Cruyff's early fluid foundations of what would ultimately become a legendary possession-based dream team. Two masterminds, completely different blueprints for how the game should be played.
And the pedigree on the pitch? Absolutely staggering. You didn't just have good players out there, you had future legends anchoring literally every single area of the field. For Milan, you've got Paolo Maldini anchoring a legendary defense, trying his best to shut down the creative genius of Michael Laudrup. In the middle of the park, Frank Rijkaard is attempting to dictate the tempo and battle against the likes of Jose Maria Baquero. And up top, the lethal Marco van Basten is leading the line for the Italians, supported by Roberto Donadoni and Alberto Evani. They were testing a Barcelona backline that featured the formidable Ronald Koeman, while Andoni Zubizarreta stood strong in goal. I mean, every single duel across the pitch was a world-class matchup.
Okay, part three, leg one, Camp Nou.
The date is November 23, 1989. Picture this, in front of 50,000 roaring supporters in Catalonia, the tension of this tactical chess match was immediately felt the very second the French referee blew the opening whistle. The atmosphere at Camp Nou was completely electric. Cruyff's Barcelona wanted to dictate the ball, to use their home crowd to fuel their passing rhythms. Meanwhile, Sacchi's Milan arrived with a clear, singular intent to disrupt, press, and completely stifle that Catalan creativity. Neither team was willing to give an inch in those opening exchanges. It was a true test of wills, with every single tackle and every pass heavily contested in front of a deeply passionate Spanish crowd.
Let's shift gears to part four, leg two, San Siro.
Exactly 2 weeks later, on December 7th, the decisive return leg took place on Italian soil. The tie was beautifully poised. Returning home, over 52,000 fans created an absolute fortress atmosphere at the iconic San Siro. The Italian supporters were practically demanding victory from their squad. With Austrian referee Helmut Kohl taking charge of this second leg, the pressure on both sets of players was just immense. Sacchi and his men had the slight psychological edge of playing on their home turf, surrounded by deafening support, but they knew that with players like Laudrup and Koeman on the pitch, Barcelona was a constant, looming threat that could strike at literally any moment. The tactical adjustments between the first and second legs were critical here, as both managers desperately tried to outmaneuver the other to break the deadlock.
Now, the tension across both legs was incredibly tight, and the timeline of major action really tells the story of how closely matched these two giants were. Down at the Camp Nou in the first leg, Marco van Basten drew first blood for the Italians, converting a crucial penalty right before halftime in the 44th minute. That was a massive away goal. But Barcelona refused to fold in front of their home fans, and Guillermo Amor punched right back, equalizing in the 67th minute to ensure that first leg ended in a hard-fought 1-1 draw. That immense tension carried entirely over to the San Siro for leg 2. The tactical stalemate held for almost an hour of play in Italy. That is, until the 55th minute, when Milan's Alberico Evani finally broke through the Barcelona lines, scoring what would ultimately become the decisive winner of the tie.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that final aggregate scoreline, 2-1. This was a remarkably hard-fought margin that officially secured the trophy for the Italian side. Let's be clear, this was not a blowout. It wasn't a lucky single-game victory. It was a grueling, highly calculated tactical victory achieved over 180 minutes of elite European football. Milan survived the absolute crucible of the Camp Nou, secured their vital away goal, and then utilized their home advantage at the San Siro perfectly to close out the tie against one of the best developing teams in the entire world.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5. A Milan legacy begins. We really have to zoom out now and look at why this specific narrow victory was so monumental for the club's future. It's so easy to look at a single trophy in isolation, right? But in football history, some wins are catalysts for absolute dynasties. This 1989 aggregate win against Barcelona wasn't just another piece of silver to put in the cabinet. It was Milan's first ever UEFA Super Cup, and it absolutely broke the seal. They didn't just win it once. That squad proved they could translate European Cup success into sustained dominance, immediately defending their Super Cup title the very next year in 1990. Then they won it again in 1994, and that winning DNA carried straight into the modern era, with Milan capturing the trophy yet again in 2003 and 2007.
Arrigo Sacchi engineered that critical first step in 1989, laying a philosophical and structural foundation that Carlo Ancelotti, who actually played in that exact era for Milan, would later inherit and completely expand upon when he returned as manager. As our sources note, Italian managers have fared incredibly well in this specific contest. Ancelotti alone has won the trophy 5 times across his managerial career, including those 2 massive victories with Milan in 2003 and 2007. The tactical discipline, the winning mentality, and the sheer DNA of that 1989 victory echoed through the decades at the San Siro. It created a standard of excellence that future generations were quite literally forced to live up to.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on a truly historic night at the San Siro, I want you to consider this. Just where does this 1989 Milan team rank in the pantheon of football greatness? They didn't just win a trophy. They survived a 180-minute tactical war against Johan Cruyff's Barcelona to establish a lasting, multi-decade legacy in the UEFA Super Cup. It was a tactical masterclass, a showcase of legendary talent, and the undisputed birth of a dynasty. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into football history, and definitely keep this question in mind the next time you see 2 European giants clash on the pitch. See you next time.